So 30%, 29% of people work for their...
One of the ways that ultra-rich people dodge inheritance taxes is they...
Are we thinking multi-generationally, right? Because my son will be able to... The ability to think bigger for yourself, the ability to understand these things as you're developing, but also to say, wait a minute.
Ruslan.
So I'm going to play you guys a clip. It's going to discourage you, but that's okay, because I think the opposite is true, and the opposite is true in my life after watching this clip and thinking through this. Okay, so check this out for a second.
Folks, turns out nepotism is alive and well in the United States of America, maybe even more so than you might have thought. This stat is pretty stunning. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Highlighted by Matt Iglesias here. This is from a report called The Intergenerational Transmission of Employers and the Earnings of Young Workers. In this research, he pulls out the statistic that 29%, almost a third, of Americans work for their parents' employer at least once before turning 30. Also, by the way, it tends to be higher income people who have their kids work at their companies, and it also tends to confer intergenerational wealth benefits.
Did you guys catch that? So 30%, 29% of people work for their parents' employers or for their parents before the age of 30, okay? That's a huge number. That's a huge, huge number. Let's keep going.
So if you're a rich kid, rich parents, working at a fancy place, you get your foot in the door, lo and behold, it means that you're going to have more earnings throughout your career. But this is, I mean, 30% is really high. And that doesn't count like, oh, I worked for my uncle's firm. Right. Oh, I worked for my grandfather. Oh, I worked for my aunt's firm. Oh, I worked, none of that. Just the literal parents. So this is really an undercount of the amount of nepotism.
I was like, am I the only person who was totally shocked by this? I'm like, I've never even heard of such a thing.
30% is really high. And that doesn't count like, oh, I worked for my uncle's firm. Right. Oh, I worked for my grandfather. Oh, I worked for my aunt's firm. Oh, I worked, none of that. Just the literal parents. So this is really an undercount of the amount of nepotism.
I was like, am I?
And you guys all understand what nepotism is, right? Yeah, everybody understands what nepotism is, hopefully at this point, right? It just means that within the context of your family, you're looking out for each other. We haven't seen a ton of this in our space. The closest thing I could think of is like Baby Keem being kind of put on by Kendrick Lamar, right? But the fact that this is happening out of 30% of Americans under the age of 30 have worked for their parents' employers, that's nuts.
I guess it's one thing to think about like getting your parents like help, like you said, by referring to possibly a family member or like a friend or maybe that person's company, but to like straight up work for your parents' business is one thing. And I was wondering if maybe there was like a class divide. And I was like, well, you know, if you work in the trades, like it's not a crazy idea that you have a trade business, but it's not. It's actually much more at the higher levels of income where you see a lot of this. And I think I know the reason, which is actually this is
Shout out to my man Leap of Faith. He said 100% if it's the right company. I just started a new company a few months ago. They gave me the salary I asked for. I was shocked at the amount of people that had the same last name.
Tax evasion. So one of the ways that...
So Sagar is saying, well, I was thinking maybe it was people doing tax evasion.
It's actually much more at the higher levels of income where you see a lot of this. And I think I know the reason, which is actually this is straight up tax evasion. So one of the ways that ultra-rich people dodge inheritance taxes is they bring their children and adult children on as partners to their businesses and as employees, and they transfer and siphon wealth from their businesses into the hands of their kids so that they only have to pay income tax and they don't have to pay any future or inheritance or estate taxes.
That's kind of genius, though. One time for the rich people. I'm not even going to count this. So you guys know what wealth tax is, right? When you pass on and your heirs take over your stuff, they have to pay taxes on that. And people will say, well, that's foul because I've already paid taxes on it and I got to pay taxes again. So what he's saying is that people will leverage this tactic to get other people to, to bring on your kids and give them stake in the company, yada, 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 because that they don't have to pay taxes on the money once you pass away because you just slowly make them an owner, right? Interesting bit, but he's saying it's not even that. Hey, you may not know I make music, but I have a brand new song that just came out. Here's a quick preview.
I went from being a porn addict to sharing the gospel with a porn actress who was criticized for being low status by the same OnlyFans who treat us so lavish. I'm confused.
I swear y'all thought he did doing podcasts, hot takes. He still can rap.
Now, this is my first song that I've released in over a year, so I need you to go to Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you consume music and stream Too Soon right now. Add it to your favorite playlist, share it with a friend. So hit the link in the description or go to RuslanToTheMoon.com to stream Too Soon now. I'll see you over there.
Ooh, ooh, oh. they got me with the dramatics. You knew.
Reasons why a lot of kids will be technically on the payroll, or they will issue stock to them as employees rather than whenever they die.
Yeah.
It's a very easy way to dodge inheritance and estate tax.
I think that's part of it, but we're also not just talking about like family-owned businesses. We're talking about people bringing their kids into like, you know, they're employed by someone else, a law firm, a consultancy, whatever, and they're able to get their kids' foot in the door at that company. And I mean, I think that this really does go to show so much of our society operates on, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You were much more likely to be able to get that job at that, you know, at that office with the nice perks and the decent salary and all that stuff if you already know someone who's there, who's going to vouch for you and help to bring you along. Apparently, oftentimes that person who helps bring you along is your parents. So, I mean, it really does shine a light on how much our class structure is sort of stuck in place, you know, how far off the American dream is for so many people, how much of a disadvantage you're at if you don't come from an already well-established, like at least upper middle class family that can help bring you into that world, help culturally bring you into that world. If you really are stuck sort of on the outside, even if you go to the right schools, even if you do everything that you're supposed to do, it's still going to be so much harder for you to break in, and that has consequences for you throughout your entire career. So pretty stunning, pretty stunning.
There's a couple things at play here, right? From one standpoint, she's right. If you aren't already connected about who you know, it's difficult. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Flip side is a lot of people don't know people. And so what do you do? Right? What do you do? Now, this is where, in my opinion, I think having the ability to think bigger for yourself, the ability to understand these things as you're developing, but also to say, wait a minute, what if I can be that generational change? What if I can be the one that changes the trajectory of what my family has been known for? What if you can do that? Because nepotism is going to be, it is what it is. These are the systems and the confines that we work in. And so oftentimes in America, we get told that it's a meritocracy, right? Everything's a meritocracy. It's based on your merit. The best person for the job is going to be the one who gets the job. The person that is most skilled is going to be the one that gets it. The person who's best on the basketball court is going to be the one that gets more of the playing time. But anyone that's done anything worth taking risk will often discover that often the folks that get access to, whether it's sports, whether it's a business, whether it's a job, are usually interconnected, right? Are usually interconnected. Even with sports, for example, like my nephew is 6'4", and he was naturally tall, naturally talented at basketball. But what he discovered is, well, the people he was competing against were also naturally tall and naturally good at basketball. But they were in all the paid AAU leagues and traveling and playing for years and years and years, right? Before he even was playing on his junior varsity team. Varsity didn't give him the same looks. Why? Because he didn't have the same foundation to launch into being a starter, even though technically he had the ability, right? And so there's this myth that like, yo, it's a perfect meritocracy. If the best person, most qualified person for a job will get the job. But that's not how it truly works, unfortunately, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't get educated and you shouldn't develop useful skills and all that kind of stuff. What that does mean is that, one, your network is super duper important, who you know, who you're connected to, right? Because the politics are going to be what the politics are. But if you're likable, that's going to give you a massive advantage. And two, what kind of lives are we building to potentially make it a bit easier for our extended loved ones and our family and our, right? Are we building lives where we can be an asset to our community and then teach them how to be assets to their community so that it's not just nepotism for the people that are already wealthy, but there's a lot of new wealth being developed. There's a lot of new money being made. There's a lot of new changes happening right now. Are we thinking multi-generationally, right? Because my son will be able to work for me, right? My son will not have to go work at Subway or Pizza Hut the way I did. He'll be able to work for me, and he'll be learning on the job really important skills, as well as working and understanding how to grind and how to develop the character to work hard. He's instantly going to be at an advantage, right? He's going to avoid many of the pitfalls that I've gone through, right, as a young man. And so as we think about these things, and are we dreaming? Are we thinking bigger? Are we progressing? Are we thinking kingdom? Or are we just happy that we're saved and we're just going to get into heaven? That's all that matters. But are you thinking kingdom here and now? Because Jesus said the kingdom is amongst you, right? that the Spirit of God is doing something different. I'm not talking about just for the sake of financial prosperity. I'm also speaking on the fact of, hey, we can change generations. We could change family trees. We could change how your grandkids experience life on this side of eternity. And so oftentimes we'll just think on the bare bones. What is the bare minimum I can do just to skate by? What if you start thinking bigger? And what if your bigger dreams and your bigger thoughts and your bigger access end up having a positive benefit on the people around you, on your nieces and nephews and kids and grandkids? We were not really taught to think this way, right? But if you have that thing, whether it's a negative reinforcement thing, like my man CP was saying, like, I dare somebody to tell me I can't do something, I'm going in, Or if it's having the positive reinforcement, you need a mentor, you need a coach, you need somebody to tell you, listen, I am where you want to be. You can do it. You got to do X, Y, and Z. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you will be able to you'll be able to get here. That's what my brain is on, because I don't want my nieces and nephews and my son to have to struggle and all these different things in the same way that I had to struggle. Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.